first marriage. This would be my fifth.
Good for you.
Wonderful dogs.
Yes.
As I tell people, I don't have a personal trainer, but my dog does.
Yeah.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Newell Louie.
Hello.
Hey, Newell.
Hey, Newell.
Hey, hey, Newell, Dungok.
Oh, Madge, get it done?
Oh, maybe the best one is Friday afternoon.
Needed.
Oh, whoops.
Hey, what's Zeecroft and McDonald doing here? According to this list, he's already expired. Or is this one of those things where if you don't get out of the way fast enough, you're automatically reappointed?
I have no idea. I didn't even realize it was expired, and I don't think Chief did either. So
He's on automatic renewal.
Next best thing to direct deposit.
Usually the way these gubernatorial appointments go is people agree to serve until their replacement is found, if they can.
Of course, there's always the Newell renewal
Yeah.
mechanism.
Okay, I have to ask.
Yes,
Besides
that too.
Besides Newell, who was on the phone? Someone is on the phone.
Is that Sam?
Sam,
Oh, he's expired too.
so Rachel, does that give us 9? You're muted.
We have 8.
8.
Hopefully Bert will show up. Like Bert reliably shows up. Where is he?
Okay. I'm saying Kate Russell.
I believe Kate is here with Wabanaki Reach.
Oh, Kate's here for Wabanaki. Okay. So we're still waiting for one,
Yes.
and that was going to be Joey.
I thought Joey could make it, and I thought Bert could make it too.
Yeah, I'd be amazed if Bert didn't make it.
Yeah, poor Joey doesn't realize it. He's already expired too.
Yep. So we need to, we need the tribes to do reappointments. Fortunately, that's a lot less difficult than it is to get state appointments. And Darren, we didn't realize until we looked at those dates that you're serving an unexpired term rather than a full 3-year term. So we're going to have to bother you to bother the tribe to give you a full term, we hope.
No problem.
Okay, well, we're still one short of a quorum here. Newell,
Yes, boss.
we are we're one commissioner short of a quorum still. We're expecting Joey. I'm sorry, I lost track. We're expecting 2 more, right?
And Bert.
Joey and Bert.
Yep.
But right now we're one short of a quorum. Do you want to maybe go ahead with the introductions for those who are here? That's what, rather than just sit and wait.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Hold
So,
on a second.
So Newell, since I can see the screen, I don't know if you can't, you can't, I suspect. I'm gonna go ahead and ask people as I see them on the screen to go ahead and introduce themselves to the folks on the audio stream. Starting,
There's Bert.
here's Bert.
Yep. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, there he is. Okay. Hello, Bert.
Hello, I finally made it.
Yep, and you make the quorum. So Newell,
My special.
Newell, we now have a quorum if you want to kick off the meeting.
By kickoff, you mean leave or go ahead and start?
No, I meant say the meeting is started, and we normally would start with introductions, starting with you.
Okay, well, I'll go then. I'm gonna say that, good afternoon, everyone. Newell Louis Lewis, das Kudumukad nyo. Nagujay ako sa bahay, kumatak na guk, naganagot. I just said that my name is Newell. I'm Passamaquoddy and Maliseet, and my family's come from both the Passamaquoddy tribes, Passamaquoddy reservations, and the Tubic Maliseet Reserve in Canada. And I want to just say to all of you, thank you for your patience for putting up with my absence. As I kind of see myself as the unseated chair at this point. And hopefully that's going to change here in the next couple of weeks. I think we got some resolve regarding, child custody and all of that. So I'm looking forward to really digging in and actually sitting down and talking, not by sitting down with, but talking with each and every one of you, on a more intimate basis, if you will, and just to get a feel of, who and where we are, and, maybe you can get a feel for who I am and what I do and what I can bring to the table for MITSC. It was not an easy decision to apply for the MITSC chair, because I know it comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of work, but the passion is there that we have to find a resolve to unite as a unit, not only as a commission, but also, kind of bridge the gap between the state and the tribes and find a way to live peacefully with one another. And, and part of that, I think, is finding mutual respect and being able to listen to one another in a way that, we don't shut down when we hear something that doesn't fit, that's not congruent with our way of thinking. And conversely, we also have to be willing and brave enough to also speak up when you see something that doesn't fit also with your way of thinking, or the way of, good relations, not only with each other, but with the state and all of that. So I appreciate each and every one of you all being here. And I hope to join you again, like I said, on a more consistent basis within the next week or so. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Newell. Do you want, would it be easier for introductions if I go ahead and call on folks as I see them on the screen?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I don't see anyone.
Okay, then Sarah, you go first.
Hi, I'm Sarah Medina. I'm a forester retired from Seven Islands Land Company. I live in Dixmont, have a camp over in Western Maine near Rangeley, and I'm currently in a van on my way to New York. So I may turn off the video at some point, but I'll try to stay connected with audio at least.
Thank you. Zeke, you're up next.
Hey everyone, Zeke Crofts McDonald, tribal co-commissioner for the Hold Down Mouses.
Thanks. And Richard.
Hi, good afternoon. Richard Rosen. I serve as a state commissioner.
Bob.
Yes, I'm Bob Checkaway, and unless Sarah Medina has passed my latitude on her way south, I'm the most southern state appointee. Is somebody working in the background with sandpaper, or is that just my audio? I hear like, shh, shh, shh. I can't figure out who it is.
I can hear it too. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's your, I think it's at your end.
Whatever. Welcome, Newell.
Next would be Darren.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dungok Newell, and so glad you can join us. I'm Darren Ranko, and I'm the junior representative from the Penobscot Nation.
Thanks, Darren. And Bert.
Oh, I'm already on there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bert Polchis. I'm the other junior commissioner from the Penobscot Nation.
Impossible.
I think Darren's older than me, so I have to say that. But anyway, welcome everybody, and hopefully we get some work done today.
Thanks, Bert. Sandy, you're up.
Oh. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I have to apologize in advance or right now. I don't have good connectivity today, so I will mostly be off camera. But my name is Sandra Yarmel. I'm a Passamaquoddy woman. I am a daughter. I am a mother. I am a sister. And I also am a member of MITSC. So, hi, everyone.
Thank you. And Sam.
I'm Sam St. John. I'm the commissioner with the Holden Band of Mouse Indians, along with Zeke.
Thank you. And we have a couple of guests. Judd, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Judd Esty Kendall, and I'm a researcher, a writer contract with MITSC, and one of the people working on the 6207, what we call the 6207 study.
Thanks. And Kate, can you introduce yourself?
You're muted.
Sorry. Thank you for having me. My name is Kate Russell and I work for Wabanaki Reach, and I'm here. I'll be joined by Maria Gerard in a little bit to introduce our new truth-telling project. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Welcome. And then Rachel, our projects coordinator.
Hey, everyone. Rachel Bell, projects coordinator for MITSC.
Okay, and I'm Paul Thibault, managing director. So Newell, going forward here, would it be easiest if either Bob or I just bring up the agenda items as they come?
Hey, Paul. Yeah, so that would be great if maybe Bob could continue on as chair for the time being. I mean, I'm going to be kind of in and out, but mostly on mute.
Okay. I think everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, can I redelegate that to you, Paul? Because you're more familiar with the agenda items than I am.
Well, okay. Well, you just tell me interrupt me anytime, any point you want to.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you both.
Yeah. So Rachel, can you get the agenda up on the screen? Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. So the next item would be to review the agenda and that you can see up there. The only addition that I'm suggesting, we had a request from the Passamaquoddy tribe communicated by Corey Hinton for the commission to consider the Jared Golden bill. I think it's 6707 in the House of Representatives that had a subcommittee hearing about a week ago. And he is asking MITSC to consider sending out a letter of support regarding that legislation. So I'm suggesting that we add that as an agenda item under new business. Well, actually, maybe it'd be more appropriate to just add it to the legislative update section of the agenda. And if everybody's okay with that,
Paul,
Yeah.
are we expecting a visit from Ben Collings?
Ben has said that if he could join, he would, but he didn't know at what part of the meeting that would be.
Got it.
So he may jump in here at some point during the meeting. He has the Zoom link. But the way things are in the legislature, he just didn't know. Okay, so with the understanding then that we'll add that on when about legislative issues. Next item is approval of the minutes from the March meeting. Those were, everybody was sent a copy of those minutes. So does anybody have any suggestions for changes or want to make a motion regarding the minutes?
I'll move approval of the March meeting minutes. This is Sarah Medina.
I'll second that. Jack away.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? Is there any, is everybody in favor of adoption of the minutes as drafted then? Any objections to that? Okay, Bob, I'm not hearing any.
I don't hear any, and I'm not making one.
Okay.
Paul, I just posted a link to the legislative hearing for 6707 there, and YouTube link in the chat for anyone interested.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Zeke. And I do think Rachel may have sent that around. That's the video of the subcommittee hearing.
I didn't send the video. I sent 2 articles, but I can email the video to everyone.
Well,
too.
thanks, Zeke.
Mhm.
And so the next item on the agenda is the financial report, which is, part of my written managing director report. As usual, I primarily rely just on what I've already provided in writing, including the 3 financial reports, for March. But I do think I should mention a couple of things. One is, as I did say in the written report, that we continue for this year to be under budget. The spending for for March was a little higher, actually for January, February, and March. I think it's been a little higher than it was the first part of the fiscal year. And that's largely been, I think, because of the increased work on the sustenance study and a couple of other short-term factors. But the big picture is that we're still looking at being under budget for the year, and that I'm anticipating at this point a carryover into fiscal year 23, which starts July 1, of probably around $60,000, which is a little bit less than half of the carryover that we had last year. I do feel I should mention the big picture or the longer term picture, especially since, we're talking about, recruitment of another director. The situation is for next year, for fiscal year 23, we will have a carryover and we will continue to have the supplemental state funding or special state funding, whatever you want to call it. But that's just for one more year at this point. We don't know that we would have that additional state funding beyond fiscal year 23. This is the year when we would have the meeting between the tribal chiefs and the governor's office regarding, the MITSC budget. but we don't know how that's going to go. So the long and the short of it is that we appear to have adequate funding, for fiscal 23, but a very, very different situation after fiscal year 23, unless there is, additional funding. Our base funding remains at, between the state and the tribes, at about $119,000, which is, as you can readily see, is far below our annual budget, our annual spending at this point. So that's, I guess, the summary of it, is that we are okay going into fiscal 23, but we have a dramatically different funding situation looking at us in a year, unless there is additional funding. I guess, to put it bluntly, it would basically be going back to the situation the commission was in, 5 years ago, where there was barely enough money to support one staff member. I think that's all I have on the finances. Unless there are some questions anyone has from the actual documents that were sent around. If not, then I'd, on the managing director report, again, I rely on, what I sent around, to, basically describe what Rachel and I, have been working on since the last meeting. And I've kind of restyled that now as a report that's not just from me, because there's now 2 of us. So I try to include things in that report that, describe both what Rachel and I have been working on, since the last meeting. If there are any questions about that, I'd be glad to address those. Okay, if not, Rachel, what is the next agenda item? You're muted, Rachel.
Old business.
Old business and the fishing study.
Okay, so we have Judd S.D. Kendall with us today, who, along with Tony Sutton, has been doing the work on the study. We have a new draft. I realize that you just got it. It was sent around only yesterday, and so I know you probably haven't had a chance to completely read through it. But we have Judd with us today to give us an update on that. And so, Judd, I'd turn it over to you.
Thanks, Paul. First, I just want you.
Judd, just a second. I think Bert has a question first.
Just real quick, I wasn't able to open that to see it. I don't know if it's just a matter of the format, but it was my devices would not open it, so I hadn't had a chance to look at it at all. So.
Well, I guess after the meeting we could follow up with you and make sure that we can get it to you in a way that you'll be able to open it.
Bert, it worked for me. Just you have to download it on if you have a laptop or a computer, right? But I think it opened up in Word as opposed to the little preview that usually happens.
I'll have to try that.
Okay, well, let us know, Bert. We'll find out a way to, so you can.
Yeah. Zeke is right. That was actually when I went to reopen it after I sent it to you. I had to download it again, and that's what I've got in my writing program. I just wanted everyone to know first that while Paul was doing his financial report, I was watching 2 eagles wheeling around over the lake here, which I think is probably a good sign, but we'll see. So the draft of the report, well, the background, this was something MITSC set out to do several years ago now, right before the pandemic, and then there was some delay in getting started. But it's a study about state policy and how it's affected fishing stocks in particular, and sustenance fishing practices and rights for the various Wabanaki nations. And what you have now, and what Bert hopefully will have soon, is essentially a full working draft. The only sections that aren't written are like the acknowledgments and the executive summary and findings. And what we're interested in is any and all feedback, content, typos, form. You missed a whole section over here. You should have written whatever it is, so we can get something together that MITSC wants to produce and put out there. It's written not to be sort of a scientific study about what happened to fish or what's the situation with fish, but more a deep background and then up to the present summary of what has happened with sustenance fishing. And it's supposed to be hopefully readable for the general public as well as whoever wants to read it. Tony, as part of the study, did interviews with members of all four of the nations, and some of that material is in the body of the report in terms of the native understanding of sustenance. What is sustenance? And also we used some of the quotes almost as little pieces of color commentary going through the document to keep sort of the native voice present instead of just have it be the writer's voice or the sort of the more technical voice. The recommendations that are included are just really samples, things that Tony and I thought of, and that's really a place where MITSC, obviously, the commissioners want to weigh in and say what they want to recommend out of this study. So with that, I'm glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Judd, I would jump in to suggest, I think the plan at this point, when we got to this point, was, while asking all the commissioners to offer their thoughts, comments, suggestions on the draft, but to specifically refer it to the MITSC Natural Resources Committee to keep this moving to the next step. So I think that's what the commission had indicated in the past it wanted to do, and when we got to this stage. So I guess I'm asking whether or not that is the will of the commission, that we basically get the Natural Resources Committee together now to talk about the draft and incorporate into that conversation comments that come from the other commissioners. That sound okay? Rachel, can you remind me and the commissioners who the four members of the Resources Committee are?
I hope I get it right. And Zeke,
No,
Sarah.
Zeke is on legislative policy.
Oh shoot.
Sam.
It's Sam,
yeah.
Sarah, John Cashwell. Who else?
There is one more state member who would be on.
Joey.
Oh no, I'm sorry, it is Joey.
Yeah.
So if there isn't any objection, and I think since that was what was envisioned when it was discussed before, is that we would now try to pull together a meeting of that committee to have further conversation about the draft and to share with them the comments that come in from other commissioners. And I would also add, I think we always say that this is not intended to exclude other commissioners from participating in that. I mean, all commissioners are welcome to join in a committee meeting if they're able to, but we'll shoot for at least getting those 4 members together for a meeting.
Judd, so I just I was just looking at it a little bit earlier, but I remember when I first read it, I remembered a bit of a longer historical section. Did you trim that down, or is it just kind of spread out more as opposed to in the beginning?
It probably is cut down a little bit, Zeke, because I've gone over and re-edited a couple of times. There were things that were repetitive from place to place, because when you're writing something, you sort of forget what you did last week. It's been cut down, and it's the history is separated out in some of the different sections. In other words, when I'm specifically talking about, say, pollution, there's a history section there. But you know, when you look it over, however you think it reads best, let me know. And I'm glad to add in, take out, whatever.
Okay. I mean, just from off the top of my head, when I was looking at it, it seems. I mean, I know the focus is specifically on the state of Maine, but I mean, we wouldn't have the state of Maine without the backstory beforehand, without the the treaties with the British as well. I mean, that's the basis of so much of this.
Yeah, some of that is in there, and it's the thing gets pretty long, and so it's a question of how much you put in and where you try to trim down. But there's a fair amount about some of the early treaties and the early settlement. For example, early settlement patterns where forts were put not at places that were intended to protect the European settlers, but were put at important river points for the different tribes and to control those.
Okay. Yeah, I know. It was my roommate was doing a project on the cod fisheries in the North Atlantic, and when I was reading his work, it expanded the whole conversation for me to realize how absolutely massive it is, and how long it's been happening, and the consequences of like overfishing in the North Atlantic that has had effects throughout all of our river systems. And then I just started to kind of conceptualize how absolutely massive the project that you undertook really is. So,
yeah.
But that's all I have right now. Yeah.
Thanks.
Other comments, questions for Judd? Sandy?
It's actually more of a comment and a suggestion. First of all, it is very well written. I found it very easy to read and to digest, although I'm still thinking it's kind of a meaty document. So I don't know, about a little bit more plain language, but that might even be addressed by using a sans serif font, which is more universally appealing to the eye, because that I think might help us to get deeper in to reading the document, because New Times Roman, especially for online reading, is really difficult for people, especially those of us at the age. So that would be my only recommendation.
Well, Sandy, I'm probably older than you, but actually last week I busted my trifocals, and I had to use an old pair of glasses. And let me tell you, trying to read the computer screen with the old glasses and get the draft together was a physical project. But I appreciate it. Yeah, I hadn't thought about font, but that clearly is an issue that, I mean, it doesn't matter to me which font it is. It should be in one that's easily readable. And I've also, there are ways you can go about trying to look at the language and see what's easily readable and what is not at different levels of language. And so those are good points, both of those.
Thank you for
Yeah.
being so accepting.
Thanks, Sandy. I think a lot of us old lawyers kind of default to New Times Roman. I never gave it any thought. It's just what everybody always seemed to use in the offices where.
Yeah. Anyway, it's something that I learned in health literacy, so I just thought I'd pass it on.
Helpful, thank you. I think I saw another hand going up.
Yeah, my hand's up. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
That's okay. I might have just some, Jed, I'll share some written comments. I didn't get that far into it, but I scanned all of it. I guess in terms of the recommendations too, I'd like, I think, a little bit more detail there, especially on the last one. I mean, I'm really interested in this recommendation of requiring TEK in every study / plan for mains rivers, similar to an EIS. I think I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. I mean, it sounds like a good idea. I guess there's some detail like what studies, what plans, and as you probably know, EISs are sort of, thousands of pages. Those are meaty documents in the way that they're done for federal projects and whatnot. So I guess if you could flesh that out some more in what you guys are thinking for that, because I think it's a really important, and it would be critical in terms of Wabanaki views on sort of the ongoing health and importance of different river systems. I think that having indigenous knowledge, science, TEK kind of being consistently reported would be a great idea. I guess just more detail on that probably.
Yeah, I mean, I got that came from Canada has been doing or talking about that, and I there's a footnote on that that cites to where I sort of got that from, and that could use more expanding and more thought from a lot of people. But I saw that and I thought, well, that's really a good idea. I don't know exactly what the mechanism would be, and one would want it not to become pro forma like some of the requirements, government requirements for documents, but something that could really inform from a different angle any policy initiatives regarding the river and fisheries. So yeah, I'm glad to try to expand on that. I'd actually like to do some more thinking about that.
Happy to help. I mean, I teach about that. I mean, as you know, this is for a variety in a variety of ways. Your report overlaps with some of my expertise, so I'll engage with you on it however you want.
You're footnoted in it a bunch of times, aren't you, Darren?
That's right.
Yeah, but if one large footnote would be on this document, it would be Professor Darren Ranko.
Well, the subsistence study that you guys cite a lot, in terms of what I did with Barbara Harper, who's a toxicologist and biological modeler, like that study is so important, of course. But yeah.
Thanks, Darren. Any other comments, questions for Judd?
Yeah, Paul, check away here. I cannot figure out how to download that thing. We don't need to talk about it now, but when you tutor Bert, maybe you can send me a copy.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'm not seeing any other comments. If Sam or Newell have any, you should speak up.
I'm all set. I thought it was a good. I look at the papers and scientifically more than historically now, and I thought it encompasses or reviewed the science in a way that I think would be easily digestible.
Well, I hope, Sam, you'll be able to join that committee meeting to talk further about it. I guess Newell and Sarah are also just on phone, right, or not on screen right now. So just want to make sure that if you have any question or comment, we get it.
Judd, I just want to say how cool this is. Like I'm doing I'm writing a master's thesis on the Watertown Treaty. That's one part of it, and this is some very cool stuff. I got to that section where you're talking about the purposeful location of the forts. And this is very cool. Yeah.
Well, that's our goal, right? Cool, Judd? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not the most knowledgeable person around, but I try to keep myself aware of a lot of things, including native issues. But I learned a tremendous amount doing this. It's really eye-opening what happened in the early days and how much it carried through and continues to carry through.
Sarah, were you trying to jump in?
Yeah, there's like some awesome resources in here. Thank you for this. This is cool.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I don't think Sarah was. She's muted, but
Hi, I'm muted. I don't really have anything to add to this conversation. I was sleeping in my van last night, didn't have a chance to look at it yet. But when I looked at the first draft, I thought that Judd was on the right track, and I look forward to reading this. I'm also on the Natural Resources Committee, so I will take a real close look at it when I have a chance.
thanks, Sarah. Not seeing or hearing any other comments for Judd. So Bob, I'm thinking we wrap this up and move on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I don't have the agenda in front of me. Rachel, can you tell me what's next?
Legislative, what's going on in the legislature?
Okay, well, we've got folks from that committee who are on this meeting. But I guess I'll just kind of give a quick summary, although I suspect that everybody's got a pretty good idea of where this is all at. But the big bill, LD 1626, came out of committee with a divided report. It may, based on the information I've gotten most recently, it may come to the floor of the House as soon as next Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, is what I heard from the Judiciary Co-Chair Tom Harnett, along with LD 585, which is the governor's bill that includes the sports betting and the adjustments regarding taxation and the tribal state consultation piece. The Sabayak water bill, I had understood or had thought it was going to come up as early as Monday. And I don't, if anyone else on the call has other definite information on that. Although the latest information I got was that it sounded like it may not actually be coming up on the floor on Monday. It may be a little later than that. And then LD 1907, which is the bill about identifying state lands and waters for return to the tribes, which apparently has gone through a amendment process that would be assigning that duty, that role to MITSC. That also, I think, is expected to come up next week. And the sponsor of that bill, Ben Collins, was trying to carve out some time when he could join our meeting today. because with the legislature, the way it is right now, he wasn't sure that he'd be able to join, but we may still hear from Ben on 1907. And with that, I guess I would defer to Bob and Darren in particular, who've been the ones I've been communicating with the most about legislative developments, to see if you guys have other information you want to share.
I would yield to the junior representative from the Penobscots.
I mean, I think that your summary's right on, Paul, and I don't know. You didn't mention as much the Passamaquoddy water bill. Did you? Sorry, I might have spaced out there for a sec.
Well, I did mention it, that I thought it was going to come up on Monday, but then based on more recent information, I thought maybe it isn't going to come up on Monday.
Yeah. No, and maybe there's some late negotiation on it. Something about who knows. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess the discussions around the bills were okay. It was the judiciary wasn't as informed as I would have liked, and I think one question going forward is sort of what role, even for MITSC or for even our subcommittee, Bob, would be, what role could we serve in educating the judiciary? Because I think just as an educator and as someone who has knowledge in this space, it was sometimes really frustrating, the sort of level of, that these are people making decisions about things they didn't know that much about. And I think that's just something that we, and I don't want to look back. I mean, let's just say going forward, I think we should try to insert ourselves as an educational, in an informing kind of way, as MITSC. So that'd be my only kind of comment.
Thanks, Darren. I appreciate that. Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, I would, Darren, you put your finger on it. The question is, what role should MITSC be playing? You and I have had a very brief back and forth about this. Back months ago, when Paul Downing was still the chair, the commission sort of moved toward a substantive or an advocacy role on recommending to the legislature whether to buy the whole package or not. And then as things started to come together, you and I had not opposite reactions to the Judiciary Committee hearings, but I was somewhat pleased that they understood at least as much as they understood by the time of the work sessions, because this is pretty thick stuff, and the Maine legislature is not used to dealing with really any of it. But I had thought that the process was working its way out, and that the governor and the legislature and the chiefs would, eventually arrive at some agreed place, and that then the role for MITSC, after having been for 35 years sort of the back channel for native dissatisfaction with the statutes, then it might look like, okay, now the question is, we got to get the general public to understand what's at work here. Until I got Paul's memo yesterday that says, they don't think they can get the 2/3 that they need to override the veto. So to get to the point, I think we're on the edge between playing an advocacy role and playing an educating role. And I agree with Darren that there's more educating to be done, but our role may depend on how contested this becomes in the legislature. But yeah, education, We need more of it.
That's right. Yeah, because I mean, I'm not in the position to say that people are willfully willfully pretending that they don't know. Like, I mean, I'm not, I don't, I'm not a political animal in that way. So I'm just assuming that when someone asks a question and the asking of it seems uninformed, that I'm not pretending that I will never pretend that an elected official is asking the question. Even I know this happens, that an elected official will ask a question to frame it in a way and pretend that the question, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's just, let's just, I'm assuming that's they honestly are asking a question and not framing it in a way that is making it slant in a political frame. And that's why when people have, even in our small group, that's why when people are like, oh, I have questions, I still have questions about that. And I'll be like, oh, what questions? But, because I think all of the questions that are posed in 1626, and it can be complicated for people, but I think all of them have answers. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, just merely being that someone has questions does not mean then, you should sort of play out like, I still have questions about something, therefore I won't vote for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make sense to me as someone who cares about knowledge and the idea that actually things have answers. So I guess that's my kind of overall point. And, I don't pretend to understand the political positions of people in the legislature. And so all I can do is just be like, oh, if someone has questions, someone, and there was some very vibrant discussion on who is considered, and this is where I got a little upset, who is considered biased or not biased within the judiciary, where it seemed like representatives for the state's position were not considered biased, but representatives for tribal positions were considered biased. I mean, maybe that's just because it's in the state of Maine legislature, but I feel like those representatives that felt uneven to me. But that aside, it still felt like even those, the people working for the state and doing the legislative analysis, right? Maybe we can work with them in their education, because I think they had struggle answering questions as in their role as working for the legislature. I guess that would be my sort of space for it. Like, let's not even go to the political side of it. Let's just say, if the legislative analyst can't answer a question about the legislation or the context for their legislation, then I feel like some of us can step up, and MITSC might be that step up in terms of helping them understand the content better. Does that make sense? Because that happened several times.
That makes good sense. And I would like to see you shoulder to shoulder with me as we try to maneuver this. I don't know for sure where this source of wisdom comes from, but I'm reminded of the saying, never attribute to malice that which can be explained by simple incompetence.
That's right. Well, in academia, that happens all the time. So anyway, thanks.
I would just add to that, having sat through, going back now all the way through the task force meetings, which were what now, over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I have to say it is not surprising, but still disappointing to, be at a hearing or be watching a work session so late in the process and questions being asked that were answered 2.5 years ago in the task force and probably answered several times in the course of that task force. And I guess I would just add to follow up that, I didn't do my homework really isn't an excuse for not having to take the test. And it is discouraging that, I guess, I look at it like there wasn't as much carryover from the task force process as I would have hoped there would be. And that maybe is because it's a different legislature, of course. You know, that's part of it, is that it didn't get all the way through the process during the same legislature. But the real lack of carryover from the task force process, when all of these questions were addressed exhaustively, what was kind of discouraging. And the fact that some of the legislators who played pretty large roles, you know, in the task force really haven't been present or really speaking to the legislation in this legislature. That's been kind of disappointing, you know, to me, but because I just think a lot of the collective knowledge that was gained through the task force process in the first year of considering the bill was kind of lost along the way. And maybe that's the nature of the legislature, and maybe Richard, you know, can offer insight on that. But it's, you know, that is kind of disappointing, you know, that you have to, you know, still be addressing such basic questions so far down the line. So, Bert.
You know, this has been an ongoing thing. You know, I mean, when Jamie was here as our chair, and you know, all the commissioners we had working on this, and all these different things that were coming up. You know, that was one of the big things that we pressed, was educating. You know, educating the legislators, and we did. We worked hard, you know, diligently, you know, and there were so many people who contributed to our ability to pull together things that would be educational. You know, and at any given time, any of those legislators could pull from, you know, from those archives, you know, all that information that you know, there were printed copies, and yet, you know, I get frustrated when I hear about, you know, these legislators saying, you know, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. Well, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, a person that's in a you know, has a responsibility such as that, has a responsibility to educate themselves. You know, yes, this body, we can and we have done so much to educate the various legislative bodies. You know, not just the House, but the Senate, even the governor. You know, and yet here we find ourselves, you know, with people saying, you know, and like Darren mentioned, you know, I have questions. You know, well, to me, usually when that term, you know, that phrase, I have questions about this, you know, so I'm not gonna vote or anything like that. To me, it's just a scapegoat. You know, it's just their way of saying, no, you know, I don't want to say I'm against it, or I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be the person that looks like, you know, they're against it, or I don't want my friends to think that I'm for it, so I'm not going to say one way or the other. But there's a responsibility, you know, and the same goes with our commissioners right here on this commission. We have a responsibility to make things move as much as we can, make the recommendations as much as we can, and we've done that in so many different ways. We've put out educational materials in so many different ways. Here we have another thing going on here, you know, with, you know, regarding the 6207. You know, it's what we do. It's what we've been doing. Now, trying to find somebody in that state government to, you know, realize that, look, the recommendations coming out of MITSC, and for, you know, these, our responsibility is to make those relationships better, between the state, tribe and state. And that's what we've been doing. So I don't know, I just had to comment. You know, I appreciate everybody's work here, you know. Willie one.
Thanks, Bert. So other comments, discussion regarding the, yeah, Bob.
Yeah, just to Bert's point briefly, Bert, be of good cheer. If you've had a chance to see these work sessions, I have to say the tribes are represented by some of the best lawyers I've ever seen. And they've also got, who is it, Kim Pat Warden and Chris Taub in the AG's office, and a lady I haven't met before, Janet Stocko, who is like a lawyer's lawyer who does all those tables. The attitude, oh, I haven't done my homework, I don't understand it, will not get these people very far, because their questions can be answered, and they got the lawyers for both sides there. And it's, I guess what I'm getting at, Bert, is it's not like nobody there knows what they're doing. For those freshman legislators who didn't benefit from the task force, they've got quite the nice roundtable there between the lawyers for the tribes, the lawyers for the AG, who, and by the way, I did not see a lot of sparks flashing between the lawyers for the groups, although Jerry Reed from the governor's office is kind of off more in his own. Are you rolling your eyes there, Bert? Yeah, he's different. But the AG's people and the tribal attorneys I think they're doing a good job. I yield.
Other comments, discussion regarding the state legislative developments? Just so you all know, maybe you do all know, the House sessions are on video. You know, right on the home page, I think when you bring up the legislative site, you can click right onto the video that's going on the floor of the House. Is there anything else on the state legislative proposals? Anybody? Zeke?
Just for I'm sure people have seen it, but you know, all over Facebook and whatnot, the Wabanaki Alliance is organizing a rally on Monday for LD 906. I'm personally going to go. So
yeah, that's the Sabayak water bill, and I meant to follow up to Darren's comment on that. That my understanding of, you know, the sticking point on 906. The governor's council, Jerry Reed, had indicated they were agreeable with the first two pieces of that bill, the tax exemption and the transfer of those parcels into you know, tribal territory. But it's the rest of it that deals with regulatory authority regarding safe drinking water. That's where the rub is, and the governor's office indicating you know, she would veto it with those pieces to it. I think the tribal attorneys are still trying very hard to, you know, reach some agreement with the governor's office. Darren may know more about that, but I think there's still a possibility that something else emerges that will resolve that impasse. That's my understanding of where it's at. So if there's nothing else on the state legislative piece, I wanted to go ahead and relay the request. If it's okay, I'm going to move on to the federal legislation that's pending. Jared Golden's bill, as I think you all know, is to, which I think is HR 6707, had a subcommittee hearing about a week ago, 10 days ago. And that bill proposes a prospective, essentially a prospective repeal of Section 1735B of the Federal Settlement Act, which is the section that says that laws enacted after the date of the settlement in 1980 don't apply in Maine if they would affect or preempt state law unless Congress specifically provides that they will apply in Maine. And the effect of Jared Golden's bill basically would be to reverse that so that the default would be that that new Indian laws passed by Congress would apply in Maine unless they specifically say that they wouldn't. And that is, the bill is drafted as a prospective bill so that it would only apply to new federal Indian laws passed in the future. It wouldn't be changing the effect of 1735B with respect to already existing federal law. So, and the request that's come through Corey Henton on behalf of the tribe to MITSC is to support that with a letter to the subcommittee specifically is what they're asking for. For background, I would tell you, because I realize some of the commissioners may not have this background, but this is an issue on which MITSC has been involved for a long time. In fact, and has been very involved with it, going all the way back at least to 2013, and I think probably before that. MITSC has been raising concern about how 1735B has been applied, and basically MITSC's been saying that it ought to be handled differently. It ought to be interpreted differently because it has been basically, and I've used the term, over applied to exclude laws that would benefit not only the tribes, but the state and particularly the surrounding communities near the tribal communities that would benefit from some of these federal laws that are being excluded from from effect in the state of Maine. The nub of it from the standpoint of MITSC, going back to communications that MITSC had many years ago with the Attorney General's office and with Senator Collins, is that the language in 1735B is, if a federal Indian law affects or preempts state law, that it wouldn't apply, and the affects or preempts the application of state law. I think it may be how it's technically worded. But the idea of affecting state law is so broad, and it has been interpreted so broadly that, as the Suffolk report pointed out, a very large number of new federal laws have been excluded from Maine. And it's been, really been the position of MITSC for a long time that, that ought to be re-examined. There have been some, I know a lot of you know the background, but, that law has prevented, until recently, the VAWA amendments regarding tribal court jurisdiction from applying in Maine. It prevented, as Sandy well knows, tribal clinics from being able to employ personnel like pharmacists who were licensed in other states and were fully competent people, but didn't have state licenses. And when it is commonplace elsewhere in Indian country for tribes to employ people who have out-of-state licenses of various types. And there, the Tribal Law and Order Act was basically blocked, and the Stafford Act, which became really a major issue for MITSC a number of years ago in communication with the Attorney General's office and with Senator Collins, because the Stafford Act would have allowed, and allowed all the other tribes to access federal disaster funds directly. But the Attorney General's office specifically communicated with Senator Collins to make sure that that law did not apply, to the tribes in the state of Maine. So, and this was an issue that MITSC spent a considerable amount of time and energy on, and proposing that, if the law wasn't going to be repealed, at least develop a test for what federal laws actually meaningfully would affect the application of state laws. In other words, which federal laws would actually impair somehow in any meaningful way the jurisdictional structure that was created by the settlement, because the Attorney General's office has really doggedly, sought to preserve any intrusion on that. And I think MITSC's viewpoint has been that it's been excessive, because it's excluded laws that could have applied in Maine and benefited both Indians and non-Indians, and would not have, in a significant way, impaired, state jurisdiction under the settlement structure. So that's basically the background. And so it's not a new issue for MITSC. It's one that MITSC has had considerable involvement with. So I don't know that MITSC, I can't say that MITSC has up till now specifically addressed, a proposal, because I don't know that there was one until now, in Congress, to basically turn around 1735B, to reverse that default that exists in 1735B. But it is now pending through Jared Golden's bill, and so the request is being made whether MITSC, is willing to support that. So, and Bert.
First of all, I believe that we need, we would have a responsibility to do so. As you said, we've historically worked on, very hard, painstakingly, on trying to get that particular section corrected. I look and I listen to the state's concerns and stuff like that. But the way I look at it, to me, I look at the state's efforts to maintain the type of control that they try to, that they impose on the tribes. I look at that as being criminal. And so, here we are, Maine Indian Tribal State Commission. What is our responsibility? What is it? What is our job? It's in regard to the relationship between the tribes and the state. Well, what kind of relationship is there? We've been focused on that quite a bit, but the relationship between the tribes and the state, it's not all that great. I don't care how anybody tries to make it sound, oh, the state's doing this for us. Well, no, the state's not doing anything for us. There are individuals, there are few and far between, evidently, in the state legislature, both House, Senate, and definitely not in the governor's administration. And it hasn't been, for many years. This governor's administration, the previous governor's administration definitely didn't have any of us, in their good thoughts, as far as getting, make things better between the tribes and the state. Prior to that, same thing, it's just, and it doesn't matter. And it's not, it doesn't seem to be any particular party, because each part, we've had governors from, each party that basically have tried to, done, evil things to us as tribes. And so, here I've been sitting on this commission for a while now. And yeah, I remember the work that's been done. And there was a lot of work done before I came on this commission. I was amazed at how much, was attempted, before I even came on the commission. And since I've been on this commission, I've listened. I've listened to the, pardon my language, but the BS that's been put across by the state. And as a native, it hurts. My responsibility, as a Penobscot commissioner, my first responsibility is to represent the Penobscot Nation here. But as a native man, Wabanaki, from the Wabanaki as a whole, my responsibility is for the well-being of all of the Wabanaki people. And I don't think there's any native out there that doesn't feel the same. We feel it. We're the ones who, feel the ramifications of the actions of the state, or inactions for that matter. So, as far as I'm concerned, should we? The question is, should we? Will we send that letter supporting Mr. Golden's bill there? I say yes, and I will make that motion to do so. Will you?
I'd like to second that.
Paul?
Yeah, Bert, you've
Yeah.
got a motion and a second on that. Bob, sorry.
Yeah, we got, and Zeke seconded it, and I can't remember the parliamentary procedure, but I think there's, we get some kind of an opportunity for discussion. Bert, I think there's no question but that we should file some kind of written testimony. So you win that one. I've always thought 1735B was like the strangest thing we've got. You never want to carve yourself out of a federal system. The statute is ambiguous, and most of all, the results have been terrible. I can't imagine what it is that the state needs out of 1735. In fact, what I'd like to do is contact somebody in the AG's office or Reed's office and just ask them, why are you resisting this? And
I think we know the answer to that, Bob.
Well, no, if the answer to that is only because we can't give up the anchor of state control that we have under the Land Claims Act, then that's not a satisfactory answer. I mean, we shouldn't be losing things like VAWA and the Stafford Act just because the state can't give up what they reached in 1980. But yeah, let's. My suggestion would be, I guess this is maybe an amendment to the motion, is that the managing director begin to draft such a statement, because I know there's background with the back and forth with Collins from years ago. I will be glad to help you dig that up, and then perhaps the legislative committee can agree on the actual text of the letter in a week. How quickly does Corey want to close the hearing?
Well, he was hoping ideally that the commission could do something, like very quickly, but he also indicated a larger window of 3 or 4 weeks, in which, we could, before the record would close, I believe. So,
Well, I think we can do a little better than that.
I think
Yeah,
it
I think,
closes on the 14th, I think, by the way.
what's that, Zeke? Say again?
The hearing record closes on the 14th,
Um,
I think.
well,
yeah, Paul, you and I could
yes.
probably do this easily enough. First part of the week, right? Then we'll get it around to the rest of the committee. The only question is, what does the letter say? We may wind up with a divided report or something.
Well, and if the record closes the 14th, that's next Thursday. That's new. I wasn't aware of that. I don't think that Corey brought that to my attention. I definitely had the impression from what Corey was telling me that there would still be a period of a few more weeks where we could submit something. But I guess, it is what it is. As far as what we say, I mean, the request is for MITSC to support the bill. Write a letter supporting the passage of the bill. Drafting something that describes MITSC's history with 1735B is different than a letter supporting the passage of the bill. So I guess I'm looking for more direction on that.
This is Sarah. I'm sorry I missed some of this discussion when my phone was not working quite right. But I'm wondering if we could write a letter that supports the things, the concepts and the particular things that we like about the bill, but not do a blanket support of the entire bill. I'm a little skittish about just saying we support the whole thing at this point. And it's I know we had discussions earlier about having questions, and I won't say that I have questions. I'll say that I just don't know about some things, and unfortunately I missed some of the discussion a little earlier this afternoon. So I like Bob's idea of writing a letter stating the concepts that we agree on, and then let them figure out how to get it in the bill.
Well,
Can I just give everyone a reminder of this is like such an important issue, but I'm also aware of time and we have guests scheduled to speak. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't have a solution because this is obviously really important.
thanks, Rachel, and you're right. But I do think there was, I mean, the motion, if I'm correct, that was seconded and is on the table is for MITSC to send a letter supporting the passage of that bill.
And Bob has an amendment proposed to send a letter essentially supporting the concepts of the bill and saying that we agree that there are problems with the original language and that there needs to be changes made so that the tribes can take advantage of federal laws and be included in them, and that will also help the non-tribal people, so that we're in favor of change. So I guess I'd like to second Bob's motion that the letter be a little different, that it be more about what we're in favor of rather than just we support the bill.
No.
Bob, was that your
So-
intent? I didn't hear it that way.
I didn't either.
You know, in view of the time pressure, I would say we can for sure send a letter, and I'm inclined to send one that generally supports the bill, unless there's some good reason the state can come up with not to. And I'm going to suggest that Paul and I try to take a stab at something beginning first part of the week. And no, I'm not thinking of giving them the entire history with all the background, but I think they should have copies of what went back and forth with Senator Collins on the
And,
Stafford Act.
and I do agree with that. Wow. I mean, that's what I gathered, from what you were saying, is that, just, and basically it's just more of a brief backup as to why we support the bill. And, so I agree with that.
I think we can do it all. I see you looking skeptical there, but then you often look skeptical. Are you around next week?
Yes, and what I'm hearing is Bob and I are directed to follow up with drafting a letter that supports the bill, but states in some detail exactly the problems that MITSC has identified in the past, and that's why we support the bill.
Yeah, we can do that.
We're not supporting it just in general because we think it never should have been enacted, but that MITSC has identified these problems and has tried to get a modification of how 1735B has been applied. And we've been unsuccessful in getting a modification of how it's been applied. If that's what I'm hearing, then we'll do that.
I'm relatively confident you and I can do that.
Do it.
Richard?
I have no objection with that approach, but I do have an objection to this process. This should have been an agenda item on the published agenda. And even if even added at the very last minute, if only on the website page. And ideally attached with it would have been a sample draft letter. And so this is a backdoor approach, which is not the best way for a commission that has a recorded meeting, a streaming public input, published agenda to take action. So I think that's part of why we're struggling with it a little bit. So with the idea that we have an opportunity to review the letter, and that can be done with the individual basis or an email or whatever, we certainly can do that. But we should avoid bringing up an action item that's not included in the agenda.
And I can't disagree with you, Richard. All I can say is we didn't have the request in time,
Point well taken.
But it is a legitimate point. So if I think there's a consensus. Do you want a formal vote, or do we have a consensus on how we're moving forward here?
Well, I think let's move ahead towards the draft and then call for some kind of a vote. How about that?
Okay, that's what I understand is the will.
Sort of by acclamation.
All right, we'll go with that. So Rachel, can you tell us what's next? And should we move to?
Well, it was staff updates, but I'm going to suggest maybe we let Maria and Kate speak next because they've been waiting.
Yes.
And I feel like I could provide my staff updates in an email to everyone rather than taking up time because there's still other important things to decide too.
I agree, and I can do the same. So if there's no objection, we're going to ask Kate and Maria to join us now to talk about the new project at Reach.
Thanks so much. And I was wondering if it might be possible to put me as co-host just so I could share a slide. Would that be?
I have allowed others to share their screen. But I'm not sure. Do I also need to make you co-host for you to do what you need to do?
I'm not sure.
Which I'm happy to do. I just am
Yeah,
not.
no, I think I do need to be co-host to be able to share the slides.
Okay,
And-
well, my apologies, but you might be able to help me more quickly do that. Do you?
Probably not.
Okay.
And you know, it was just for an illustration and a visual. It's not, you know, pertinent to the conversation. And I do want to be succinct. I know you have other business to tend to, so I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time, but.
I'm gonna try and figure out how to do that, but if you want to start speaking while I look.
Okay. Yes, I'll do that. Great. And I was listening and feeling that hearing your frustration was a perfect segue to our brief presentation. It's really good to see some familiar faces and to meet some others. My name is Maria Gerard, and I'm the Executive Director for Wabanaki Reach. And I just wanted to share just a little bit about who Wabanaki Reach is before I talk about our project. We tried to reach out, I think it was towards the end of last summer, but it was sort of hit and miss, and a lot of things going on your end. So we're actually glad that we're meeting now because we have, you know, more information to share with you. And so, you know, early on in this project, we were reaching out to MITSC really as a professional courtesy. You know, realizing that MITSC by its design and nature is so intricately connected to the Maine Indian land claims, and this project being about stories of the Maine Indian land claims. And so, but first of all, Reach and who we are, we're a native-led 501c3 nonprofit here in the state of Maine, and we are working towards truth, healing, and change is sort of our motto. And I always say our biggest claim to fame so far, and a piece of work that I've been really proud of, has been the Maine Wabanaki State Child Welfare Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So conceptualizing and convening that. And I also want to acknowledge Commissioner Polchis, because he was very actively involved in that commission, as was his late brother, Dominic Polchis. And I had the pleasure of working with Dominic directly during the TRC. At that time, I was working for Penobscot Nation as a community organizer, sort of making way for the TRC to come into our communities. So I always remember how Dom was so adamant about, you know, wanting to do this work so that other children didn't have to suffer. So the birth of this project, this new project that we have, really has its roots in that TRC. And so during the time that Wabanaki Reach was conceptualizing and convening the TRC, when we were having the commission come into our communities and hear stories from tribal members, many times we heard people say that we really needed some sort of truth-telling process around the Maine Indian land claims, acknowledging that it was sort of this big elephant in the room, oftentimes in conversations within our tribal communities, that not only was there that that friction and that intense relationship between the tribes and the state, but also within our tribal communities, a lot of misunderstanding about the land claims. And so we started thinking about how that might look coming out of the TRC. And so we early on started framing this truth-telling project as like a follow-up to the TRC. And it really started gaining some momentum actually as we were watching what was originally LD 2094, so a couple years ago, as the state legislature, you know, we run up against these barriers and we kind of lose steam in these legislative attempts. And so it was sort of born out of that frustration of, you know, there's got to be a different way of doing business together, and realizing that maybe at the state legislative level isn't the place for the change. Maybe we need to back it up a little bit and hear from people and hear their stories and humanize this this topic and this issue a little bit more. And so then we started planning this in earnest. And I wanted to introduce Kate Russell. She's a project coordinator for this project, and what we've come to call it is Beyond the Claims, Stories from the Land and the Heart. And like I said, the birth of it really was in the TRC. And also another thing by way of introduction is that in addition to being the director of REACH, I'm also a scholar of the Maine Indian land claims, and I did my master's thesis on the topic. And so the land claims has always been a topic that just really intrigues me. And I was so happy to be able to sort of bring that interest into my work at REACH. But I wanted to hand off to Kate just to kind of pick up, and we'll tag team for a few minutes about describing what this truth-telling project is, Beyond the Claims.
Thanks, Maria, and thank you everyone for giving us some space to share about this project with you. I'll try and be brief. Beyond the Claims, Stories from the Land and the Heart is Wabanaki Reach's truth-telling initiative, and it's centered around the Maine Indian land claims. It's really an oral history project. So we're working with a team of story collectors very closely, and we've been conducting, recording, and preserving personal oral history interviews with folks from Wabanaki and Maine communities. We started in January with our first story. Our first story was with Carol Dana, actually. And our intentions with this project are a few things. Ultimately, to create space for truth-telling to happen and for healing to happen. Also to gather these stories and build an archive and house them safely in a digital collection that will be available to the public. And in the historical record. And we also, from these stories that we gather, hope to create other educational, creative resources inspired by the stories. We feel that this project, well, we hope that it will demystify the legislation, the Settlement Act a little bit, and humanize, like Maria said, those people who have been affected by the legislation. We hope to amplify their voices and preserve their stories for cultural continuity. So that's a lot of information, but basically we're gathering stories and keeping them in a safe place for others to access and learn from. Since January, we've been focusing our energies on connecting with elders, firstly, and that's been going really, really well. We're learning a lot as we're moving along, and we're spending the rest of the year, just this year, collecting stories. And our hope is to gather interviews from a wide spectrum of experiences. So one of our intentions with seeing you today was just to put it out there that if you have any ideas of people who you think would be, you know, interested in being interviewed and sharing their story, maybe someone who'd offer an interesting perspective or a different perspective. We are so curious and open to hearing from you. I know you have a lot of other things to get to, so I can leave my email in the chat or email you again another time so you have it, and feel free to connect that way as well. Does anyone have any questions for Maria and I?
Okay, Kate, I would just invite you, please ask you to go ahead and send an email to Rachel and I think Maria's got them if you don't. So we'll have that.
Great, thank you.
Are there questions from the commissioners about this new project? Bob? You're muted, Bob.
I'm
Bob?
sorry. I'd be interested to know whether your interviewing will go back to people who remember the days of the Indian agent.
Well, we certainly are hoping so. Like Kate said, we're starting with elders in the community to share what they want to share about their experiences and their recollection of history. And we're also interested in interviewing non-native folks, so people who might have a lived experience in association with the land claims, perhaps people such as yourself who have served on MITSC, or people who could have served in the negotiating from the state side. And so one of the things that we're hoping is that you might be able to give us some ideas or to direct us in a way to make contact with folks like that, that might be interested in sharing a story. So a lot of times people will ask if it's just native folks that are expected to share a story or that we want a story from, but it isn't. It's anybody and everyone. And I remember when I was doing some educational outreach at Penobscot Nation. I was the director at the cultural department, and we did these the teacher workshops, and I used to do this little segment about the land claims. And I remember one time a teacher speaking up and saying it was a really scary time for us too. So I was, giving the perspective from the tribe, but she caused me to pause and to say it was really, really scary from where we were sitting as well. And I know that the media wasn't particularly helpful during that time. But just knowing that a lot of people have some stories to share that might humanize this topic. Oftentimes when we think about the land claims, we're thinking about the legislation and the interpretations and how it's moving through state government. So we kind of want to peel it back a little bit to learn more about the human side of this story.
Well, we wish you good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting more, and we'll certainly do anything we can to get word out about this project through MITSC channels.
Thanks. We'll follow up with an email with the contact information, especially for anyone that might be interested in sharing their stories. And we're hoping some of you might.
You
Leave one.
Only one. That's a great project, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, we can, Rachel and I can follow up on that. It occurs to me within MITSC, unfortunately, some of the folks are not with us anymore, but we've had members of MITSC, even a chair of MITSC, who were intimately involved with the details of the passage of the act. Attorney General Cohen later became the chairperson of MITSC. And Wayne Newell was a MITSC member who was a negotiator. He's no longer with us. It's unfortunate. But anyway, we'll follow up on this. I would definitely like to see some folks who are currently with MITSC, participating in that, sharing, their perspectives on it. So what's next on the agenda, Rachel?
Well, I think we might have to trim it down. We have Holtrachem, we have a discussion of terms, we have the executive director search, we have the retreat, scheduling the retreat, and then we talked about scheduling meetings for the rest of the year.
Well, I'm going to suggest that we do need to talk about expiration of terms. Maybe we can find some shorter ways to deal with the other items, but I suggest that we tackle that now and make sure that we have a conversation about that, if that's okay. Bob, sound okay? Bert?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. But I meant to put something out when I read it before. I'm trying to see where that list of expiration of each term. I looked and I saw Darren was slotted to be up for his seat, and he just came on. As far as I, and as
That's
far as
right.
far as I know, when it comes, and I can probably speak for us. You know, our term starts from the time that we get
Yeah.
appointed. So
Yeah, and you're right, Bert. That's been there's a different perspective on this, but the way it is right now, Darren is officially considered to be serving the unexpired term that John was serving. That expires just about the same time your current term expires. And I think within a month of each other. I don't know why there was even that much of a difference. I thought you were appointed at the same time, but the issue is that the statute provides that it works that way, that if someone leaves the commission before the expiration of the term, that the replacement serves the unexpired term. And the state adheres to that very strictly, as far as I know. On the tribal side, at times, new commissioners have been appointed. They've been appointed to 3 years, even though, a prior commissioner had left before the expiration of the term. And that has, on a number of occasions, been the tribal practice, which does make it easier in some ways, and contributes to having the members not all expiring at the same time, which is a big problem right now on the state side. But the statute says that if someone leaves the commission within their term, that the replacement serves the unexpired term. So that's the kicker, which is why I guess what I'm saying is to really comply with the statute, we need to go through this process of reappointment of those who were serving, unexpired terms. And of course, for those who've actually served 3 years, then obviously we would need reappointments anyway. So that's what it's about, is that the statute is worded the way it is.
it just goes to show you the state doesn't necessarily know what they're doing.
I couldn't hear
that. I just said just goes to show you the state doesn't necessarily know what they're doing.
Well,
it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It's the main implementing act. Okay.
Well, yeah. Again,
so it's a provision of the main implementing act.
Whose push was that?
And we are a creature. The MITSC is a creature of the main implementing act.
I'm playing, but there's some seriousness to it. But I am playing.
So I would ask, all of you to be looking at that list of expirations, and Rachel and I will follow up on that in terms of, and I'm hoping that folks are going to stick around and be willing to be reappointed. Obviously, we've known for a while we have a problem on the state side with that, and we're anticipating some vacancies already. We don't know yet exactly how many we're going to have, and I'm not going to put anybody on the spot right now. But we know we're going to have some state vacancies, and the reappointment process with the state is is difficult because it depends on the legislature being in session. It depends on the governor, making nominations first. So hopefully on the tribal side, we can get some pretty speedy action on reappointing those who need to be reappointed and hopefully want to be reappointed. So anybody else? Sandy?
I just wanted to ask a question if it is appropriate for me to reach out to my tribal chief and let my tribal chief know that, my term will be expiring, and let her know my level of interest ahead of time so that there isn't such a lapse. And I just want to know if it's appropriate for me to do that.
That would be.
Yeah, I think that's right, and we would appreciate you doing that. That would really help to pave the way. You don't expire. I hate to use the term.
Until fall, right?
Until September, I think, is your expiration date.
So if I could get a letter done and in before, like sometime in mid to late August, then that would be okay?
I mean, obviously we have some parameters set by the statute, but I think it's up to the tribe. If they want to go ahead and say that they're going to reappoint you, as of that you get a new term, I think that's up to the tribe to say that. So
okay, all right, thanks.
So Darren, we gotta let Zugum know. You can do that. You get to him faster than I do.
Yeah, Zeke.
Oh, just to update you on me. I when I first saw that email and realized my term was expired as well, I sent a text over to Chief to find out what I should do, and she said she had no idea, and left it at that. So
yeah, we'll follow up, and if you could also, I mean, right now you're doing what a lot of commissioners have done is you're serving until replaced.
Okay.
Hopefully you're replacing yourself. We hope you are.
I'll reach back out again. Yeah.
So
sitting here, Paul, we kind of talked about in passing. We kind of been talking about in passing, and it was more like if you're willing to keep going, then it'd be good to go. But I can get something more formal.
I think what we're saying is, we're encouraging you to, to ask for the reappointment. And if I don't think we have to be more formal than that. If you can approach Chief Sabatis about it, and ask for that, that's what we would like to do. We can communicate. I could communicate directly with Chief Sabatis if you would feel better about me doing that.
Oh no, yeah, I was just saying it was just a thing in passing. I'd mentioned it to her, and it was a sort of an informal thing. I'm saying, if there was something more formal needed, but she was aware that at least my term limit was up. I don't know if she knew Zeke's at the time, but yeah, she would be behind whatever decision I would have.
Okay, well then I think what I'm going to do based on the conversation is I'm going to send an email to all the chiefs, about these needs for reappointment, to just follow up to support what you all are doing on your own. But I would ask all of you on your own to also be, if you haven't already, to talk to your chiefs about the need for reappointment. And it is based on the fact that the statute has that particular provision. So okay, what else we have, Rachel? You're muted.
The executive director search, the retreat schedule and scheduling of meetings.
Well, on the director search, what I would suggest, if there's a consensus about it, is that we, basically have well, obviously, every commissioner is invited to offer feedback, comments on the draft that was sent around of the job description posting. But beyond that, I suggest that we make this an issue for the administrative committee, that basically administrative committee function as, the hiring committee with respect to the recruiting of an executive director. I think that's basically what's been done in the past. Bert would know. So if there isn't any objection, I would take it that that's how we'll go. We'll go to the administrative committee to move forward with that. But we would solicit comments from all commissioners about the draft that was sent around. Does that sound okay? Any objection to that? Bob, I'm not hearing one, so, okay.
Sorry, I don't object. My system is unstable here. And if I turn myself off, it works better.
Okay, then we're gonna go, that's the route we're gonna go on that. That leaves us with scheduling. And
Yeah, I mean, if I could quickly just take a poll on this retreat to those that I don't have responses from, because it is something that really has to be scheduled in advance. And I think someone did respond to my survey that I sent out before I clicked the button that allowed me to see who was responding. So I apologize if I'm being redundant in asking you, but maybe I can just go through some names and just get your preference. It's looking like the most people that have responded so far could either do the weekend of September 9th, 10th, and 11th, or the weekend of September 16th, 17th, and 18th. So Zeke, are you available either of those 2 weekends? And do you have a preference?
Yep, I'm looking at the calendar now. So 9th, 10th, and which other weekend?
16th, 17th.
Yeah, I mean, both those are free for me. So either. And yeah, apologies for not responding to that email. That was at a time when I wasn't entirely sure, where I was going to be renewed, kind of thing. And so I wasn't entirely sure, but for the moment, until I hear otherwise.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
And Joey's not here, but Bert, I need your response.
Yeah, I think really for me, the only time it would be the later one, the 16th, 17th, and 18th, because I know I'm going to be required to be somewhere on the 12th, which is my birthday. So, of course, my wife is going to go along with that. So, of course, the 16th, that's right after my daughter's birthday. So it's good. I'll be here.
Okay. Great. And then,
sorry, I'm starting to just realize that that's usually around the same time as the Holton Recognition Day powwow, I think. Sam, any chance you know when the dates are for that this year?
No, but I can find out real quick.
Cool.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks for telling us that, because that we would not want to, conflict with that.
Yeah, I'd love to go up north. Sandy, I'm wondering if you were maybe the one who responded, but I didn't catch it. I know you had initially responded to the 16th, 17th question, but would you also be available the 9th, 10th, and 11th?
I could make myself available for either one. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then Newell, are you still on this call and hearing this conversation?
Yeah, I just got reconnected. So
Okay.
I've been out of commission here about 20 minutes.
Did you hear what the question is I'm asking?
No.
Okay. Well, my question is, we're trying to schedule a retreat and we're looking at weekends in September. And I'm wondering if you could tell me your availability either the weekend of the 9th, 10th, and 11th of September, or the 16th, 17th, and 18th, and if you have a preference.
I don't have a preference and I'd have to look ahead. So.
Okay. Yeah, so if
Thank
you
you.
want to email me that, but as soon as you could let me know, that would be really helpful so we can get something on the books. Thank you. Okay, I think that's everyone.
That's on, okay, so that's for the retreat, and I guess I would just say our intention is to, try to go ahead and have a retreat, even though we're, we don't know at this point all of who the members will be at this point. But I think our intention is to have a retreat with who we can get. That may not involve a formal meeting if it doesn't, if we don't have enough to have a quorum for a formal meeting, but a get together, is, yeah, Rachel.
Sorry, I can let you finish. I just realized, Richard, I had heard back from you about the 16th, 17th, and 18th, but are you available the 9th, 10th, or 11th?
Well, assuming I'm still here, which is, I guess, a standing question at the moment, but no, I'm afraid not. My work that Fridays and Saturdays are going to be pretty difficult with return to students and the weekend commitments.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Rachel, I have a date. It's either the 10th or the 17th.
Okay, so
those.
That's surprisingly makes things difficult, eh?
Yeah.
I was hoping for more finite, but I guess still in the sort of the planning stages.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to follow up, and we don't want to conflict with, with that. So, in fact, I think, I've been up there before for it, and I know Rachel's indicated she'd like to go up for it. So,
yeah, maybe Holton Band will host our retreat.
Yeah.
Actually, that's where it was when I first came on. That was my very first in-person meeting. Was our retreat at the Holton Band. They have some beautiful little cabins there.
Yeah, that's right. Up there up north there. Well, we'll follow up on that. I guess the last item then would be scheduling. Do we want at this point to try to schedule the balance of the year? And are you all ready to try to have an in-person commission meeting? I guess that's the first question. Is there a sentiment that we should now try to go back to?
I am all for it personally. I'm back in Maine, by the way. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Zeke. I didn't hear the beginning of what you said.
Oh, I'm all for an in-person meeting, and I'm back in Maine. I'm back in Holton.
Oh, well, good.
They released it for Canada.
I mean, it can still be, I guess, a hybrid format. If there are folks who can't, get it, we have the means. We've used it before to do the Zoom, from wherever. We've done that before. But is there anybody who definitely does not want to go back to having in-person meetings?
Well, before you ask that question, I think that we would plan it as a hybrid anyway, because there's a chance that some people won't be able to make it.
I think before the pandemic, we had already gotten the equipment so that we could people always have the option of coming in by, remotely. So yeah, I assume we would continue that.
Yeah, because right now I know dealing with, I know with my own personal situation, I'd love to be in person, but I know we're also, my wife and I were also looking at our daughter trying to move around. Matter of fact, here in Portland tomorrow for UNE, touring UNE, touring different campuses that accepted her. So, and I know coming up, even in the summertime, there's that plus our traditional wedding is going to be in August. So I have to keep all that in mind.
Well, and along that line, I don't know that we're going to have a meeting in the summer anyway. Which I think leads to the next question is, can we try to, or do we want to try to schedule for the balance of the year, or do you want to just try to get the next meetings? I think we already had tentative dates for, potentially May or June or June. Is that right, Rachel?
That is correct. I think
second Fridays, I believe.
Yeah, the question maybe was that if we shifted to in-person meetings, it would make sense to do a longer meeting, and maybe we pick just one and do it longer and in person.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you're not going to want to have folks traveling for more hours than they meet. I would assume, that in the past, when we had in-person meetings, they were, longer, because some people have to travel a considerable distance to get to those meetings. I was going to suggest that, and Bert and Darren, I appreciate your help on this, but I was thinking for the first time we have another in-person meeting, that we try to have it either at Indian Island or at the university, because it's centrally located for, folks, and so we can do a ceremony for John Banks, to acknowledge his long service to MITSC. We've presented him with his gift, but I'd really like to have us do something in person. Yeah, Bert.
As far as I know, I think as far as trying to hold it on Indian Island might be kind of hard right now until we get some things taken care of. Because right now, the space that we would normally use is in the Nick Sapir building, and right now we still don't allow anyone into the building. That it's for even the offices there, they just make an appointment and they come. That person comes out, takes care of it, takes care of whatever they're doing. Nobody stays in the building too long. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, I guess then I would shift over and look at Darren. Darren, do you think you might be able to help us do it at your facility there at the university?
Totally. Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. We
were going to have a meeting there like last year, I think.
Yeah.
And then for various reasons, we didn't have it. But,
yeah, no, that's pretty easy for me to pull off. We can, yeah, let's just set a date. It gets easier after, May 10th or so in terms of facilities get freer after graduation. So,
well, then I think, okay with people, we ought to revisit then the date that we had previously set. The second Friday in May was going to be what day, Rachel? What date?
The 13th. And then the June date would be the 10th.
those are Fridays, Darren. Can you take a look or?
Yeah, I can schedule. I mean, I have half control over a room that would accommodate us. So, but I can also, there are probably comfier, we could get, you know, there are various forms of comfort, I guess, in terms of, you know, the which room it can be in, but it wouldn't be a problem, and that for that date.
You don't want recliners because we'll all be sleeping.
No, I mean, it would be a table of some sort, most likely. And, you know, I guess, what are we looking at in terms of the overall numbers is close to 15 or so, right?
Well, but we would, because it's a public meeting, we would, you know, in the past, a few people have usually attended.
Okay.
You know, our meetings, it varies. That sometimes
Sure.
it's before, sometimes it might be a few more than that.
Sure. And we're looking at that May 13th date.
Is there, if there's a consensus that we go ahead and get May 13th, does that sound good?
That actually is probably, anyway, that's not, okay. Just in looking at it, there are a couple of things that day on campus, which might make it trickier. I guess as long as we could end before 4.
Oh yeah, we would, because
Yeah.
people have to travel, so.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll be fine.
We typically, when we were having in-person meetings, I think the latest we would go would be 3.
Okay.
All right, well then if there isn't any objection, we're going to shoot for that. May 13th at the university. And it'll be we'll have the equipment so it can be hybrid for those who can't be there in person.
Exciting.
At the end of the agenda?
Yeah, it is.
Well, Bob, I guess we've got to Bob and Newell, if you're still with us, we've reached the end of the agenda.
I'm still unstable, but I'm still with you. As Paul Simon might put it, still unstable after all these years.
Well, somebody want to make a
Oh, yes, motion to adjourn.
I second.
Right?
And Sandy's, I don't know what happened.
Any objection to adjournment out there? Okay, I guess.
Newell, it's not always this easy.
All right. I guess we're concluded then.
Thank you all.
Everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Everybody.
Paul, do you want to stay on a second?
Sure.
Okay.
But we still got a stream.
Okay.
We still have a audio stream. I'll give you a call.
Okay. All right. Bye.